Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new episode of Explore and Engage with Anam. It seems to me that Nancy Mace may run for the office of the governor of South Carolina. I'm talking about Congresswoman Nancy Mace, and I think it's very likely that she's going to run for that statewide office. Now, if you ask me, Tossif, do you know for sure? My answer is going to be no. I don't know for sure. There's no way to make a prediction. There's no way to know the future. There's no way to know what's going to happen. Is she going to run? Is she not going to run for the office of the governor of South Carolina? I don't know. Congresswoman Nancy Mace, one thing I will tell you about her, and I have not met her in person. I would like to meet her. I know she was in Wisconsin just a few months ago for an event, but I didn't get a chance to meet her. But she's doing good work. She's doing good work, especially when you look at the things that she's doing to protect women's rights, to protect women's sports. She's having an impact, and she's very popular, and her popularity has increased in recent days and weeks and months. So when you think about the entire House of Representatives, how many members are there? 435. I mean, of course, there could be a couple of vacancies, but that's the total number, 435 House members. How many of those House members do you see on TV, on national TV? Not a whole lot, maybe a small fraction, okay? I mean, 435 House members. And if you just randomly pick any person and ask that person to say the names of the House members, there's no one out there who's going to be able to state all the 435 names. I don't think it's possible. I mean, it's a very big body, 435. Okay, in the Senate, it's 100 senators. But in the House, 435 House members. There's no way that you're going to be able to, know the names of each and every House member. And depending on the size of the state, the number of House members vary, okay? So bigger states have more congressional districts and more House members, and smaller states have less. So when you look at a pool of 435 House members, there are a few congressmen and congresswomen who really stand out, either because they are in leadership positions or because they are chairs of important committees, or because they are very outspoken, or maybe they are very active on social media and they have a huge fan base, or they have really championed some very important initiative or legislation or something. I mean, there are many reasons why people become widely known, okay? And so when you look at a body of 435 House members, not everyone's famous, not everyone's widely known. There are many House members who perhaps have been in office for a long time, but they don't have the national popularity, okay? So talking about Nancy Mace, she really has gained a lot of momentum, not just in South Carolina, but really, across the country. And she's very active on social media. If you follow her on if you follow her social media pages, then you know that she, posts a lot of content, and that definitely helps her become more widely known. So she's very outspoken, there's no doubt about that, and I think that's what people like about Nancy Mace so much. Of course, you're going to get different answers depending on who you're asking. So if you talk to the Democrats, they are not going to like Nancy Mace's policies and positions. But if you talk to the Republicans, then yes, the Republicans really like Nancy Mace. And so what's going to happen going forward? That's the question. Nancy Mace, as I said, she's widely known, and she represents South Carolina's 1st congressional district. So when was she first elected to Congress? That's the question that you may be asking as you're listening to this podcast episode. So Nancy Mace was elected to Congress in 2020, okay? And I remember seeing somewhere that Nancy Mace became South Carolina's first Republican woman elected to Congress. And now some are saying that she may run for governor from her home state of South Carolina. Now, right now, the governor is Henry McMaster, but Governor McMaster is facing a term limit, and so he is not going to be able to run for re-election. And that definitely raises the question, then who is going to be running for that seat, for that statewide seat? And one name that has come up is Nancy Mace. So in November of 2024, Nancy Mace won her 3rd term in Congress. And so she does have a few years of experience in Washington. And so if she runs for governor, and if she's successful, then Congresswoman Mace is basically going to leave Washington, D.C., and then she's going to be back in her home in South Carolina, because as we know, a member of Congress has to spend a significant chunk of time in D.C. But if you are the governor of a state, then you are basically taking care of the state. You are in the state, unless you're traveling outside the state or outside the country for personal or official reasons. But a governor focuses on the state. So you're spending time in the state versus spending time in Washington, D.C., which members of Congress, they have to do. So if Nancy Mace runs for governor, given the politics of South Carolina, I think she has great chance of success. Okay, I'm not going to give you a percentage. I'm not going to talk about probability. I'm not going to say, oh, she has a 70% chance of success, 51% chance of success, 90% chance of success. I'm not throwing any numbers out there, but I'm just going to tell you, given her popularity nationwide, and given the fact that South Carolina is a red state, it is a red state, okay? If she runs in a primary and if she can win the primary, then I think she's going to win the general election for the governor of South Carolina. Now, I bring up primary because I think that is something that may happen. There may be other candidates who are going to jump into the race, and there may be a gubernatorial primary among Republicans. That may happen, but if Nancy Mace wins the primary, I think she's going to have great chance of success in the general election. And being the governor would mean being the chief executive of a state, and so that's a huge responsibility. And if she's successful, if she does run and if she does become the governor of South Carolina, then instead of representing a part of South Carolina, which she does now, she represents her district, her 1st congressional district in South Carolina. But if she becomes the governor, then she is going to represent all of South Carolina. And so if Nancy Mace does decide to run for governor, I think it's going to be a very interesting race, okay? My friends, I want to share with you some more observations today. And I think we are seeing a trend in American politics. I think the trend is that older generation is slowly exiting, and the younger generation is entering politics not just as political activists or volunteers of political parties or political strategists. I'm talking about younger generation entering politics and running for office and being successful and being getting elected and then holding important positions in government. I mean, you look at Arkansas. Who's the governor of Arkansas? Who's the governor there? It's Sarah Huckabee Sanders. And she's a millennial. And Nancy Mace, I believe, is slightly older than Sarah Huckabee Sanders. But Nancy Mace is still young when you look at a lot of the other political figures today. Okay? I mean, there are individuals in Washington who have been there for decades. They have been in office as elected official for decades. So from that standpoint, when you look at Nancy Mace, she's fairly young, and I think the younger generation, younger Gen X, and then the millennials and the Gen Z, they are gaining momentum in politics. Now, Gen X has been there for a while, but I'm talking about the younger Gen X people. Okay, and I think, my friends, we are seeing a trend in both parties. Okay, the exit of the older political figures and the rise of the younger leaders. You look at the Democrat Party side, okay? You look at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC. She's fairly young. And some are saying that AOC may run for U.S. Senate from New York, okay? And, I think the possible scenarios are, number one, she decides to challenge Chuck Schumer in a primary, or scenario two, Chuck Schumer decides not to run for re-election, and then AOC runs for the open Senate seat. So I don't know what's going to happen, but a lot of people are saying that AOC is likely going to run for U.S. Senate. Now, some even say that AOC might run for president. You've probably heard that too. Whatever it may be, I think the point is that the younger Gen X and the millennials and the Gen Z, they are now moving to the front. Okay, they are now securing important positions in American politics, and we are seeing that on the Democrat side. We are seeing that on the Republican side. Okay, very different politics, very different viewpoints, very different ideas. Very different strategies and approaches, but there's one trend that I think is common, which is common in both parties, which is the younger generation is making an entry and becoming more and more powerful in American politics. So I think here's what's going on. People want to see energetic political figures. And I think it'll be very interesting to see if Nancy Mace decides to run for governor. I think if she does decide to run, that gubernatorial race is going to be... It's going to draw a lot of attention. A lot of publicity. And... what will play a huge role in that race, okay, if Nancy Mace decides to run for governor, there's that big if, okay? So whatever I'm saying, you have to focus on the if she decides to run. She may decide to just get, re-elected to her current seat. She may decide to run for re-election, for Congress rather than running for governor. So that's a possibility. But if she decides to run for governor, what will play a huge role in the race is whether or not President Trump makes an endorsement. Okay. If Nancy Mace runs for governor, is President Trump going to endorse Nancy Mace? That's the question. And I think an endorsement would make a huge impact. So for the November 2024 election, President Trump did endorse Nancy Mace for her House race. And so, we may see another endorsement or not. I don't know. Not making predictions. As I may have mentioned, I think I did mention it earlier. I can't remember. Nancy Mace did visit Wisconsin a few months ago for a Republican Party event, and she has become very popular as a strong advocate for women. So she fights very hard to protect women's sports, women's rights, and so she's likely to get tremendous support from young women, from young female voters, if she decides to run for governor. And there's one more thing that I should add. I have a feeling that Nancy Mace may have political ambitions for offices higher than governor. I mean, she is in her 40s now, so she has a lot of time if she decides to run for public office that's higher than the office of the governor. You know what I'm talking about, okay? I'm not saying she will, but I mean, she could run for president, right? We may see her as a presidential candidate at some point. I feel like she has political ambition. That's just my guess. That's my observation, and you may disagree with me, and you may agree with me, and I don't know what the future has. Okay, I think a lot of younger political figures in the United States today think about that. They think about their own pathways to higher offices, and there's nothing wrong with that. People can have dreams. People can have ambitions, and when you have a dream, you move forward, right? It gives you the drive, the energy to move forward. It all starts with a dream. It all starts with a desire, and then that will give you the energy to find your path and move forward. So when I see a lot of energy among young young politically involved individuals, whether they are in their 20s or 30s or 40s, they're still young. And when I see the younger generations becoming very active in politics and developing that desire to run for office, whether running for mayor or state legislature or county board or a statewide office like governor, like Senate or House, it's a good thing. It's a good thing when people are involved in politics. It's a good thing. That means they are paying attention. That means they care about the country and they want to take action to improve people's lives. Okay, so political involvement is great, and it's great to see the younger generation getting more and more involved. So regarding Nancy Mace and whether or not she is going to run for the governor of South Carolina, I don't know, but I think it is quite likely that she will. So let's wait and see what happens, and you can share with me your thoughts as well. So I really want to hear from you, especially if you are in South Carolina. Okay, if South Carolina is your home state and you are a voter in South Carolina, I want to hear from you. I want to hear your thoughts about what might happen in your state. Okay, By the way, South Carolina is a wonderful state, and we have people from South Carolina who watch my YouTube videos. Okay, so when I do live stream on YouTube, when I publish content on YouTube, share my political commentary and my analysis, and people from all over the country. In fact, people from even outside the United States, they tune in for my live streams, and I know that we have listeners and viewers from South Carolina. So share with me your thoughts, my friends. I want to hear from you. And what I will try to do going forward is, what I will try to do is to share with you my thoughts about more possible candidates for different offices, and also candidates who have already announced that they are running for federal or state level offices. So as we head towards the midterm election in 2026 November, there's going to be a lot to talk about. We'll talk about the candidates. We'll talk about the important races in different states. We'll talk about the economy. We'll talk about polls. We'll talk about immigration. We'll talk about a lot of different things: energy, transportation, healthcare. So please stay connected. Please stay connected, and also make sure that you're checking out my website. My website is tausifanam.net, and if you want to send me an email, you can do so. My email address is tausif@tausifanam.net. And if you want to connect with me on social media, you will find me on Facebook, on Instagram, on X, and also on Truth Social. So connect with me, share with me your thoughts, and especially if you are listening from South Carolina, tell me what you think is going to happen in your beautiful state. So with that, my friends, I'm going to wrap up this podcast episode. Thank you once again. I truly appreciate all the support that I'm getting from my viewers on YouTube, and also my listeners who are listening to my podcast episodes. And I feel very, very encouraged seeing the overwhelming support that my YouTube channel and my podcast have been getting. So thank you once again, my friends. I'm going to be back again because there's a lot that we are going to be talking about, a lot that we need to discuss as we approach the 2026 midterm. And then, of course, 2028 presidential election is also coming up very fast. I mean, time moves fast. Okay, thank you, my friends. I appreciate it. We are in season 12 now. It's been a wonderful journey so far, and I hope to continue publishing more and more podcast episodes. So thank you so very much, my friends, and I look forward to hearing from you very soon. Thank you.